Yeah, this kind of material seems like it's totally in that kind of novelization sort of territory.
Think
And
Larry had an overbearing mother?
yeah, he probably had some massive family issues. Or he was a wee boy.
Ah, yeah, right. Maybe he was
Yeah.
a wee boy, yeah.
Yeah. He was the wee boy that left and went to college. Hail Toddo.
What's going on?
We got a podcast, The Buff and the Blazer. If I was a listener, where would I go to find more?
You can check us out on our website, thebuffandtheblazer.com. Drew over there writes a article that goes along with every single episode.
You can find all kinds of little extras on the articles, and you can listen to the podcast right there. Also, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, we're on Twitter at Buff and Blazer. Follow us there.
Get those clicks, people.
The Buff and the Blazer.
Welcome to episode 50 of the Buff and the Blazer podcast, the show where we break down films past and present. I'm Drew, and as always, I'm joined by my good pal, Mr. El Toddo.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude?
Nothing. Hotel life.
We're in a bit of a different setup this week.
Yeah, it probably sounds a little different, folks.
It might sound a little better,
Hopefully.
but we'll see. We'll see after, we'll get it in post. But, yeah, this week we are discussing a film that just recently got released onto digital, Let Him Go, directed by Thomas Bazooka. Is that how you say that? It's an interesting last name.
Bezucha.
Bezucha.
I don't know.
And starring Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. And I'd be lying if I said that was the main reason this even got onto my radar, was those two right there. But we kind of both saw it. We were going to go for a twofer, I think, with this and the last
my
film
schedule's a little too slammed to pull that off.
So, anyways, it gave us a chance to get this in early. But what did you think watching Let Him Go? What were your first impressions?
First impressions were, it's a really well-made movie. Great acting. Like, great acting. All the way around, top to bottom. The story was a little bit hard to relate to. It's definitely like an old man and an old woman story. It's not, geared towards our age group at all.
Yeah.
It's kind of like throwback. It's 1960s, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not terribly interested in that time period very much.
Yeah.
And, it was just kind of hard to relate to. But I did like the general arc of the story and where it kind of got to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was one of those things where it was like it checked a lot of the boxes on being a good movie, but it didn't really connect with me that well. But I do, recognize how well made it was and kind of its strengths. And I liked some of the violence in it, which I found I was a bit shocked at how
me too.
How heavy some of the violence was.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a really long time to get there. And it felt a lot longer than it really was, I think.
Yeah.
What about you?
Same. So I was actually, after watching this movie and after our last film, going through, like, because I know you have a clear system on, like, how you come up with your scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking a little bit about mine, and I think the one element I have to throw in there that works for me is we got all the technical categories that we go through, all of like story, character, cinematography, score. And then I think my last point goes to whether I enjoyed the film or not. And I guess it's a bit more subjective, but not so subjective where it's like doesn't make any sense.
It's kind of like an umami, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of like that feel factor, I guess, right?
Yeah. And I think, anyone really knows after you watch a movie whether you liked it or not. It's kind of it's almost like an instinctual kind of thing. So with this film, I'm totally on board with you. Like, it's really well made. It's beautiful to look at. And it's shot differently than some of the other films that we've seen. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Like Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, this is the second film that they've played husband and wife.
What's the first?
Man of Steel.
A Superman movie?
Superman. So they're Jonathan and Martha Kent. in that film. And they're really good in that film too, together. So when I saw them reteaming for this film, it intrigued me. But like I said, technically, in terms of the story, everything kind of checked the box for me. Maybe some of the elements of the story I found a little bit hard to believe, but maybe I'm willing to let that skip because it takes place in like 1960. So maybe I could see that taking place somewhere in like a rural Midwestern sort of setting in the 60s. Overall, I thought it was really well made. It's just in terms of my overall enjoyment of it, it wasn't the most enjoyable film for me. And that's just my personal take on seeing it the first time.
Yeah, I'm exactly right there with you. And I think it has to do with the generational thing.
Yeah. Like, I think we were talking probably at the end of our recording on Dreamland, and we both were kind of saying that Dreamland maybe is not as well made as this film, but there's something about that film that's a lot more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, our bias could be, you know, like we just love watching Margot Robbie.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. But there was something about that story that was just, you kept wanting to watch it. With this film, and I think you put it perfectly, it's an hour and 53 minutes runtime, and it feels like it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, for sure. It felt super long. It was kind of a slog. But I'll put it this way. I wasn't really into it until, like, you know, beginning of the third act when kind of shit really hit the fan.
Yeah. Let me ask you about, so the general setting of this story, it's kind of like I don't know if you've really been keeping up with Kevin Costner, but he's been really into this, like, rancher kick where he plays, you know, someone out in the country with his cowboy hat on that's a rancher and owns a lot of land. Like, he's been totally in this vein of role for the past, like, 5 years.
Doesn't he have a show called, like, Yellowstone or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
I've never seen it.
It's really highly reviewed, too. But what did you think of the story being set in this kind of, being placed in this setting, like on a ranch in the Midwest, like country bumpkin kind of thing?
It's like Montana and North Dakota, right?
Yeah.
Is that Midwest?
Is it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Midwest is like from freaking Michigan
so
to Idaho, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid geographic designation. But in terms of, you know, geographically, I really enjoyed it. I love the mountains and I love the plains and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole cowboy thing doesn't really connect with me. I enjoyed the Native American aspect of the story.
Yeah.
A lot, to be honest. You know,
you're talking about with Peter and...
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and like his kind of experience in a Indian school and stuff.
Yep.
And what the hell? I'm trying to remember what that movie was that we did. Oh, was that Taika Waititi movie?
Oh, Hunt for the Wilder People?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Remember how I was kind of like hoping that movie said something about the, you know, kind of stealing kids away from native cultures, and it never really got there.
Yeah.
And I thought about that when I was watching this movie. But yeah, the whole cowboy thing, I just can't relate to it really in any way. Even though I love kind of open land and geographically I can really relate to it, but the whole kind of rancher mentality and stuff like that, it's not my bag, man.
And so I was thinking about that too, and I think there's kind of two things about this. One is, I mean, I'd at least say my lifestyle is something completely different from the lifestyle of this family and these two, this husband and wife. And then secondly, like you said, there's a generational thing. So this isn't typically a story reading it on the page that I'd be like, oh, this is up my alley. And it was more so that the actors that drew me to this film. But what I was asking myself watching this film was, could you accomplish this kind of story outside of this like rancher cowboy setting? Like, could you achieve this in the city or in a different time period for that matter? Like, does it have to take place in the 60s? Could it take place in the 70s, the 80s, now? And I feel like you really could have set this up in any time period and it would have worked.
Yeah, I think if it was in a city, it would be like a much more like there'd have to be like a drug addiction element, right? Rather than just like the asshole country stepdad element. It would have to be like a crackhead dad or something like that. if it was
more like the tax collector.
Yeah, totally. Something like that. But yeah, it's made for old people, right? It's completely made for old people. It's like would you classify this as a Western?
See, and that's another thing I was thinking of too. Like, it has Western elements, but it's almost like a thriller.
A little bit, right?
It's like a little bit of a, if you want to call it a Western thriller, in a weird way. I think if you're young, you can get something out of this film, but I think if you're someone middle-aged and maybe older, I think you could get a lot out of this film because it hits on themes like following around two people that have been in a marriage forever. And, I kind of liked that element of it, of seeing like how they kind of know each other so well, but also like you can see at times where they get on each other's nerves even.
Yeah, there's a bit of resentment at how well they know each other almost.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a testament, I think, to Kevin Costner and Diane Lane because they play it so naturally. Like, I totally bought that whole dynamic between them in the whole film. That was probably one of the most realistic, like, husband-wife duos I've ever seen on screen. Like, at least at that age. Like, that's almost how I see my parents at times. Like, the way they are with each other, being around each other for so long. So I can relate on that level. But in terms of putting myself in the shoes of those people, that was a little harder for me to do.
That's funny you say that because I kind of felt the same way. Okay. Like the whole time I was watching it, I was like trying to relate to it, but I just came back to like relating it to my parents almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And like the whole kind of grandma thing. Mm-hmm. Because my mother's never going to forgive me that I'm not interested in having kids. So that's like kind of what I kept coming back to, this kind of like grandmother kind of matriarch type instinct, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the other thing too that I really saw my parents in this film is they're very attached to their grandchildren. So, if something were to happen like that, that's something I could see my parents doing, trying to go out of their way to even like take custody of, one of my nieces or nephews and totally taking on the parental role. So yeah, I guess I identified with the story in that sense.
And we're gonna do no spoilers, right? Because this is fairly new.
Yeah, this came out like last week, so we'll try to keep this as general as possible. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess as a general rundown, I don't even know what they said in terms of how they describe the general plot of the story. I'll just read it. I'll read what IMDb has on here. A retired sheriff and his wife, grieving over the death of their son, set out to find their only grandson. So his mom, the grandson's mom, ends up remarrying, and they're living together for a little bit in this apartment away from the little boy's father's parents. And one day they go to visit, and they're not there in the apartment. And they're trying to figure out what the hell happened. So it's kind of...
And there's a couple other little tidbits that we won't give away.
Yeah.
To like, that kind of clued them in.
Right.
To knowing that they weren't just not there, they weren't just at the grocery store. It's something a little more nefarious, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. So before you sat down to watch it, did you see anything beforehand? Did you see a trailer, a poster, anything like that? Okay, all right.
Absolutely nothing.
So at what point did you start kind of like putting pieces together where you were like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going? And so at what point was that? And then were you able to clue in on where it was going?
So the point that I kind of figured out the general driver of the plot was when Margaret, Diane Lane's character, is driving through the town.
Yeah. And
she sees her grandson and her, what is it, like ex-daughter-in-law?
Yeah.
Blanche?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, not Blanche. Sorry. Lorna.
Oh, Lorna. Yeah.
Yeah, Lorna. When she sees them in town from her car, that's basically when I was like, okay, I know where this is going.
Okay, all right.
And then what was the second part of your question?
So the second part of the question was, with the way that they developed the story, did you see it leading up to the point where it ended? Did you see that coming? Was it predictable for you?
No, I won't say it was terribly predictable.
Okay.
But the second they gave the name, the Wee Boys.
Yeah.
Right? The family of the new dad, Donnie.
Yeah.
Once they said the name Wee Boy, and they're like, oh, the Wee Boy clan is out in North Dakota or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is where it's going. You know, they're like a scumbag family, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I kind of got the whole gist of it right at about the time when she saw them in the town, and then they kind of went looking and with the names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say that was probably that whole wee boy aspect and all the people, the members of that family, that was like the creepiest part of the film. Like those people were just total fucking weirdos.
Yeah, probably my favorite part of the movie for sure. Because everybody, I mean, I grew up in a small town, right? And there's lots of those types of families, right? That
Shit.
You know, whether I'm not saying like they're murderous or whatever, but like families that get a reputation that's linked to their last name that's many times unfairly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I can relate to that pretty well from like a small town kind of person, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And then so we finally get to the end of the film. How did the ending stick with you?
I liked it, to be honest. I really liked it. I liked the amount of consequence that there was.
Uh-huh.
It was like a really, really slow build, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Super, super slow build all the way until the third act. Like there's basically nothing happening.
Yeah.
And then it kind of really picked up at the end, and I did really enjoy the ending.
So for you, did it pay off with the slow build at the end?
I would have liked it to maybe get there a little quicker and stay there longer.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, there was some payoff for me.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it was...
What about you? Did it pay you off?
Yeah, because I actually wasn't expecting it to end that way. I probably should have. That's the thing, like, at the end, at least for me, the film ended in a way where I was, like, questioning, was all of that worth it?
Yeah.
And I like that the film doesn't end in a way where you're like, okay, they did the right thing. That's exactly what they should have done. Because it doesn't end that way, in my opinion.
No, not
For me,
at all.
it's like you're really thinking about, was that worth it? Did they do the right thing? And basically, the biggest question is this... I mean, I'm sure this isn't how they expected it to end, but was it worth the sacrifice? And I really liked that it kind of causes you to ask yourself that question. There's a total cost.
Total cost. And it's really well kind of married to the title of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole time you're watching the movie, you think the title of the movie means something.
Right.
And it actually ends up having multiple meanings, right? And that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, like, and that was another funny thing about this film is going through it at different points, I'm like, oh, that's what the title meant, and that's really fucked up. And then it progresses more, and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's what it meant. And then finally at the end, you understand what it meant. But at the same time, it could still apply in those other areas too.
Yeah, it's almost, it's maybe the most layered title of a movie we've done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely say that this film is a lot about loss.
Yeah.
It's almost entirely about what is it to lose somebody? How do you recover from that? What are you willing to do to keep that person around or their memory? It's like this film is completely, almost entirely all about loss.
Yeah, and I think George, Kevin Costner's character, has a line directly related to that, right?
Do you remember what it was?
It's something along the lines of, all life is a collection of your losses or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And, I've heard that in another film, too. Actually, it was another cowboy film that Kevin Costner is in, Wyatt Earp. And there's a scene where he's locked up in jail, and he's in there because his wife just died, and he's been, like, screwing around, and he's getting into trouble, and his dad comes in there, And he basically tells him flat out, like, that's what life is. That's what life's all about, loss. So it's definitely a line you hear occasionally. But yeah,
I went to graduate school with Wyatt Earp's, I think, great or something granddaughter.
Really?
Yeah, she's super cool.
Get the fuck
I
out
still
of here.
know her. Yeah. I won't say her name, but yeah, her last name is Earp.
Oh, what's that one TV show? Winona Earp?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like a female spoof on Wyatt Earp. And she's like badass. And
that sounds pretty funny, actually.
Yeah. Wow, really?
And then,
that's so cool.
Tombstone, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny about that film? I know we're digressing a little bit, but I don't care. Tombstone, I don't enjoy as much as the actual film Wyatt Earp. And they came out, like, I think a year or two after each other.
I haven't seen the second one, the Wyatt Earp film.
Yeah, so to me, Tombstone's a little bit more campy. And then Wyatt Earp is a little bit more, like... It's in the Prince of Thieves vein in the early 90s, like trying to be a little grittier and more historic.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking Men in Tights when you said Prince of Thieves.
Tombstone's a little bit closer to that.
Yeah.
Not as much, but...
I just love Val Kilmer, man. I love him in that movie.
Eventually, we're going to do some Val Kilmer throwback films, because there's a couple on here that I think...
Oh, we got to do Salt and Sea, man.
Salt and Sea, yeah. The Saint is like one of my favorites that he's in.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I'm working right next to Salt and Sea.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it while I'm out here.
Yeah, we'll have to do something. All right, so I think we did the best we could to get through some of the major points of story without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know how much more we can say without giving stuff away.
Yeah, no, I think we're good there. Let's talk a little bit about the cast here, because I think, man, like you said, top to bottom, this is some high-level talent that we're getting on screen everywhere. But let's talk about Kevin Costner and Diane Lane first. Let's get them out of the way. I guess your overall thoughts on, like, the two of them together.
They're just total dynamite, man. They are just like, you can't poke a hole in one little bit of how solid they are. They're so believable as a couple. They're so believable in their emotional struggles that are, like a family thing in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're just dynamite, man. They're so good together, and they're both such professionals,
Let me ask you this too, because I was picking up on this, and it has nothing to do with their acting chemistry. I think this was all intentional in their performance, but did you get a sense of, like, when it's George and Margaret together with Lorna and James in the household together, there was almost like this weird awkwardness, like this underlying awkwardness underneath, like, the dynamics going on between James and his wife and then George and Margaret. I don't know, were you picking up on anything like that?
Yeah, there's, like, you really get what's the right word? Like the coldness from Margaret towards Lorna.
Yeah.
And like the whole, and this is a really common theme. I have plenty of friends where I know the grandma of the kids that are from my friends, and this whole, like, almost like possessiveness that the grandma feels towards the child, right? It's like their child, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And they almost feel like they would be better, the kid would be better served to grow up with them. Almost like the grandmother doesn't trust the true mother to raise the kid right or something like that. And it's really brief, the scene you're talking about. It's a couple of minutes that James is even in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it really comes across well. And then with George, there's like almost this uncomfortable thing where he sees that behavior and that kind of like awkward tension.
Yeah.
And he's like almost a little bit apprehensive to put his own wife in check and say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty surprising, because I picked up on that really well, and it's like a really short scene, and that's kind of like this. It's like a real hard emotional driver of the movie.
And the other thing too is I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh, I'm sure anybody with with a, grand or a mom and then a kid, I'm sure any of them can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Me and you can't, but
yeah.
But know, right? Totally, man.
And I'm sure daughters-in-law too, I'm sure they can relate to being in that situation. But yeah, I'm glad I don't have to worry about that shit.
And it's totally real, man. I don't want to spill too much of my family stuff, but there's those dynamics in my family as well. And I'm pretty sure there's that in every family.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think, well, maybe you and I didn't connect as deeply with some of the dynamics of the characters. I think a lot of people will pick up on or can relate to some of these characters. Okay, so we got them out of the way. I agree. I think they're amazing, and they have really great chemistry together. I mean, I want to see them together again in something else. Let's get out of the ranch and let's put them somewhere completely different, because this is twice they've played the Midwestern country bumpkin couple, and they're really good at it. Get them into a city or get them into space or something. I don't care. Just get them on screen somewhere. Yeah.
So Superman, Man of Steel takes place in a Western landscape.
Well, so he grows up in Kansas.
Is that how he really grew up?
Yeah.
In the comics and stuff? Okay, yeah. I just don't know anything about Superman.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's an alien crash lands into Kansas, and Martha and Jonathan Kent find him, and they're this couple that lives out in the middle of Kansas. Small town, Smallville. So yeah, they play very, very close characters. Maybe a little less protective, even of Superman, but still, they're really good, and they have really good chemistry.
Well, at least they got some mountains in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, man. We'll talk about that, too.
Flat-ass Kansas.
Yeah, it is gorgeous in this film. So other than those two, what character for you really stood out? Did you have a favorite?
Two.
Okay.
So, Blanche Weeboy.
Yeah. Hard
played
not
by
to.
Leslie Manville, and Bill Weeboy, played by Jeffrey Donovan. Mm-hmm. Those were my two favorite characters in the movie.
Oh, man.
Blanche was just the most evil, over-controlling mother that I think a lot of people that can relate to. I'm really thankful that my mom wasn't like that at all. Yeah. But I know plenty of moms like that, of friends that I've grown up with. Sheesh. Not as evil as she is in this movie, obviously. But that she is so good and she is so evil, and the level of awkward and the level of tension when her character gets introduced, when they invite the Blackledges over for supper. Yeah. Was that scene was really, really cringy, right?
Yeah. That scene probably had some of the best acting in the whole film. And she skirts this really weird line of she's very direct with some of her lines, but also very passive aggressive too. Mm-hmm. It's the worst of both. Yeah, she's total very, very abrasive person.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great in this movie. And then Bill Weeboy, Jeffrey Donovan, he is so creepy.
Dude. Yeah, he definitely has one of those looks where he can just go nuts at any point. And I think to cast him in a role like this was perfect.
Yeah, he played the role so well of the extremely fake kind of country hospitality with the total evil right behind the pupil, you can just see the evil behind his eyes. Mm-hmm. And I've seen him in something before, but I don't know what it is.
I feel like I have too. Yeah, his face is really recognizable.
What is this? I'm just checking out his deal. Burn Notice.
Oh, okay.
Is that a TV show? Looks like a TV show. Yeah, it aired for 6 years. Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, is he the dude from L.A. Confidential? But I don't think he is.
Sicario 2. The lesser of the Sicario movies. But yeah, he did a great job in this film. And I got a shout out to Boo Boo Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
That plays Peter Dragswolf. So the native character in this film. I liked the level that he was playing at. Because he's like very, very mild tempered and kind of like, he was kind of the calm that everyone needed in this film. Because you have Kevin Costner and Diane Lane that are in this really desperate mode. Then you have the crazy Wee Boy clan, and he was kind of the nice, like, even-keeled character in the whole film, and he plays a role at the end.
Yeah, and also real timid, right?
Yeah.
And he did a real good job of playing that almost like, I don't mean this in any type of offensive way, but like broken.
Yeah.
Like broken from his culture type of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed him a lot too, and it was he's a very sympathetic character.
And I liked his story too. Like, I like how he's living out in the middle of nowhere in his little cabin, like with his horse. That's really, I like that whole element of his character.
Yeah, because he ran away from the Indian school that he got shipped away from, and he has some really powerful lines in this movie that really have nothing to do with the main story.
Yeah, and it's almost like he's on a search for identity. Yeah, his background is pretty interesting in this film too. He brought an element that I think, all kinds of people can relate to that, trying to figure out like, where do you fit in?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Maybe somebody's done it, but I'm surprised nobody's done a really kind of dramatic movie on that aspect of American history.
Yeah,
because it's really common, and in this era when the movie takes place, it was still going on, right?
Yeah.
Like the Indian schools and stuff kind of died out in maybe the 70s, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I've seen a documentary of some Navajo kids that got taken away and, spent their whole lives away from their people and their families, and they got like reunited with people they hadn't seen in 20, 30 years, and it was extremely emotional.
Oh wow.
And I'm always really sympathetic to that story.
For sure.
He's great in this too.
Yeah really.
There's a lot of parallels with Dreamland, right?
Yeah, with some of the characters.
Yeah.
I forget the character's name in that film.
Yeah, me too. But
yeah,
it's very similar, right? Except he wasn't taken away.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, in the same vein, though.
Anybody else stand out for you?
I think for me, those were the big marquee people.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you get the sense that, and we can't, this isn't giving anything away because you already know that Lorna is a widow, right?
Yeah.
But Ryan Bruce, he plays James. Did you think there was going to be some type of nefarious aspect to his death that never came to fruition? Like it didn't come to, is what I'm saying, in the movie. Did you get the sense that there might have been something nefarious in his death? Because I did, and then it never really happened.
Not necessarily. I mean, like for me, and this was one of the things that I was thinking about with the believability of the story, is like, I don't know if this could really happen today, like where all these people just die or get killed and then they're able to walk away and it's kind of like the end of the story. To me, that's a little bit it's a little bit of a stretch, even for like 1960, and it's not that long ago. Still like totally modern, but
I wonder if like falling off a horse and breaking your neck is a very common death in the ranch world.
Yeah.
I don't know. But would you?
Sorry, no. You're talking about the son.
Yeah, James.
Yeah.
The one who.
Sorry, I thought you meant one of the
movie.
wee boys. No.
No. None of the wee boys.
To me, I didn't question it because for me that wasn't really important. I guess the important aspect of that whole thing was the fact that he died.
Yeah. I was kind of expecting it to come out later, maybe that Donnie Wee Boy, played by Will Brittain.
Yeah, like he got knocked off or something.
He snuck over and freaking because he wanted Lorna or something, but it never got there.
No,
What'd you think of Lorna?
Lorna was great too. I thought she did a good job of because to me she's like a broken character.
Yeah.
For most of the film.
Yeah.
After James's death, so she's just completely like lost, even though she remarries, and she stays that way until we get to the big like climax and we finally see how the story ends. But I thought she did a great job of playing like just that completely lost character that is concerned for her son, but also knows that she's in a very dangerous situation, and it's brutal what happens to her too.
Yeah. So she's played by Kaylee Carter. And she kind of got me thinking, like, and I don't know if this is just me, but I kind of have some really strong opinions about the whole kind of old worldly traditionalist kind of, you need to be married and you need to have a husband.
Yeah, that was another thing.
I almost felt like she's a victim of the times, right?
Dude, that's exactly what I thought. So once I saw, because it's like you get the part where you get James's death, and then it's almost like immediately after you get the shot of them
getting married
in the courthouse, and I'm like, that's the whole problem with this entire plot is that.
Yeah. But again, that's like a time thing, right?
Yeah, so that's the bias coming out.
Yeah, it's like your kid hasn't even aged.
Yeah.
And you're already remarrying? Like, what the hell are you doing,
Yeah. So, I mean, what it did, it causes you to ask a lot of different questions. It's like, is that one of the key factors in terms of how south this whole plot goes? I mean, can it all be pointed back to that moment? Is it meant to be that way? Is it meant to be like a time capsule to show you like maybe this isn't the best way to go?
Oh, it's not. There's no maybe there.
Yeah. So
it's
like
not a good way to go. You
so like
never
was that the intention? I guess
that quickly.
I guess what I'm asking is, when you see that, do you think that that's something that the director or the filmmakers are intentionally putting on screen to have you question and think about, like, or do you think they're more concerned with just telling a really focused story that's wrapped around that? Do you think he's trying to send a message in any way to be like, maybe, stuff like this is what it can lead to?
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentional or not, because I kind of have the feeling that that's my internal bias.
Yeah,
that I'm projecting onto it, but you can't say that it wasn't and isn't a part of the kind of traditional culture.
Yeah.
Of the quote unquote American dream, right?
I mean, it's the total spark of the entire plot.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, immediately I was like, well, you can point to it right there. Like,
yeah, bad decision.
Yeah, totally bad decision.
Totally bad decision. And it's hard to relate as a male as well, right? We can't really put, or I can at least put myself in the shoes of a woman in that situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Her concerns and her worries might be completely linked to, that time period. It's like, oh, you need a man to take care of you kind of bullshit.
Right, and it's 1960, so it's a totally different time.
Totally, yeah. But it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I like. I mean, I think while I may not have enjoyed the plot of this film as much as I did with Dreamland, even though they're completely separate films, I think there are some really important, interesting questions you can ask with this story that I think even today are relevant. But yeah, do you have any last thoughts on any characters, anyone you left out that you wanted to talk about?
No, all in all, it was really good. I don't know who played. So Greg Lawson, he plays the Gladstone sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed his small role.
Yeah.
And kind of like that, don't come to our town and think you're fucking gonna make the rules,
Yeah.
That kind of dickhead, quintessential sheriff,
Yeah, very stereotypical character. But to be fair, though, they didn't, like you said, he wasn't on screen very long, so.
Yeah. But I did I love that hospital scene where he comes in and, kind of lays the local law down.
Right.
The local law kind of trumps right and wrong.
Yeah.
Because he's probably scared of the wee boys too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Fucking wee boys.
Fucking wee boys. All right, let's talk about the look of this movie. And we'll start off with the where it takes place. And I mean, in the film at least, what did we say it was? Montana and
North Dakota, right across the border, right?
Okay, yeah. Man, there was some like sweeping imagery in this movie.
Oh, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
There's something really cool about like, a tiny cabin in a vast landscape.
Yeah.
With a fair amount of relief, like that. The scene when they go camping and they run into Peter.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably like my favorite, group of scenes in the movie was his whole cabin. How he lives on, above that beautiful river and that big gorge. And
yeah.
It was just beautiful, man.
And I loved all the shots where you're following the car on the trek to North Dakota and just all of the mountains and like the 2-lane roads that go through.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah,
so beautiful.
Really beautiful. It's probably one of the biggest strengths of the movie.
Yeah. And for me, I will say, while I don't have like a shot that jumps out at me that I really liked, there's something about the way that they colored this film. Like it has almost, it seems like it's oversaturated in a way where like the colors are very, very deep, but there's also a bit of like a desaturation to it. So it's like, it's kind of skirting the line between almost like the Saving Private Ryan kind of look where it's like certain colors are very, very emphasized over others, and it has like a darker kind of tint and tone to the entire film.
Yeah.
I thought it matched really, really well because like in the opening scene, right, you get a very sort of wholesome introduction to the ranch life.
With like the sun coming through the windows in the kitchen and stuff. And it kind of almost gets progressively darker as the story progresses. Okay, I get what you're saying.
So I thought that was kind of a nice contrast to that visually. And as the film goes on, it's almost like you said, it gets darker and darker until the very end where you're actually like operating at night. So it's, I mean, you can maybe look into that a little bit and say maybe that was a choice or maybe it was circumstance, but I think if you tie it together with story, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought it really matched well with the overall arc of the story, right?
Yeah.
And even when they're in the little cafe having lunch with Lorna.
Yeah.
In Gladstone. It's even a bit dark there, right? Even though they're in a town and it's daytime and stuff, it's like, yeah, I bet it was intentional, man.
Yeah. And it was really, really nice to look at. I think rather than just shooting straight and giving you the color, I like it when films kind of play with like shadow and depths of colors and taking out a little bit here and there to match kind of a feel of a movie. I think that's what they did here.
Yeah.
So it matches the tone quite a bit.
Were there any shots that kind of stand out to you as like really kind of cool or different? Because to me it seemed pretty traditional.
Yeah, to me it seemed pretty straightforward. Like I said, for me I think it was all about what they were shooting and the color palette they used. And what was cool is it seemed like almost all of this film, if not all of it, was shot on location.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool to see. There isn't really anything I can pick out, maybe other than like the interiors that maybe could have been on a soundstage.
Okay.
But other than that, everything seemed like it was shot outside. And I love that.
Yeah, like you think the supper scene was a soundstage?
I could totally see that being a soundstage.
Yeah.
But I mean, that'd be cool if it wasn't.
But they got some old ranch house and filmed it there.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd say the ranch house they live at in the beginning, like the family homestead, that looked pretty realistic. But then again, like I don't know
Who
how.
knows, right?
Yeah, they could totally dress it up to look real. But all the exteriors looked amazing, like being shot. And I will say that probably the last shot of them walking away from something that's ablaze, that was a really powerful shot, I thought.
Yeah, really, really kind of powerful imagery.
Mm-hmm.
triumph and tragedy all at the same time.
Yeah. And total tragedy, all at once.
What about, there's a little bit of effects in the movie.
Yeah.
Tiny little bit. Basically like one thing.
Yeah.
The hatchet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. At first I wasn't sure what happened. And then I was like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly shocking with how slow the movie had been going.
Yeah.
And then it picks up. And to be honest, I didn't really expect that scene to go the way it did.
Yeah. They took it all away. And yeah, I was a bit shocked when that happened too.
Yeah, George, you gotta freaking pull that trigger, man.
Shit.
Don't think twice. You're a sheriff. You can get away with it.
That's another one of those scenes that demonstrates the cost of every action in this film. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got to give it to him there. You're not getting anything for free in this movie. It's all earned, and it all has a cost. I guess we could talk a little bit about score, and to be completely honest, I'm trying to think back really hard in terms of like
I can't remember shit.
Stuck out. Yeah.
I was thinking about that before we got on, and I was like, dude, I don't remember anything score wise in the movie. Like I know there was music playing, but I can't remember.
Yeah, and
anything enhancing or anything pissing me off. It's just like it's really like absent in my memory completely.
And you know what though? Like to be fair, sometimes that's the better way to go. Like maybe it doesn't have to enhance the film, but as long as it doesn't detract from the film. And like if we're picking up on, all of the plot detail and like character stuff, and it seems like that came across completely fine. I think score did its job in terms of not taking away from that or taking us out of the story. Because I know there's a bunch of films that we've done where you're just like, man.
Yeah.
Like, cut it out.
And like the final scene of the movie is so dramatic, and it's such like a, kind of build up to that moment.
Yeah.
And the fact that I didn't have a negative reaction to like really overblasted, music at the end of the movie is probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah.
I just remember like when we did that Invisible Man movie, the last scene and the music, that's like all I can remember from that movie. It's like it completely ruined, an hour and a half of sweetness.
Yeah. Okay. And I could you could easily say that there was none of that in this movie.
Yeah.
Because we clearly don't remember. But yeah, I got to start taking better notes during the score sections of these films. All right, well, I think we've reached a good point where we can start diving into our love-hates. Let's start with you.
So, I loved the consequence.
Yeah.
Of the movie. That's what I loved the most. I didn't relate to it very much, but where it got to, I really liked.
Yeah.
And how the resolution, I really liked it. And it's a really kind of down the middle, good and bad kind of thing. Because I was kind of expecting it to, to wrap up and have like a really somber ending where, they don't even come close to their goal. And they, kind of tail between the legs, head back to Montana. That's where I was expecting it to go. And be a really kind of downer, bummer kind of ending. And it really picked it up, and that's what I loved the most was the consequence and the resolution.
Yeah.
What I hated was kind of what we touched on with Lorna's character. Is I really, really got some major issues with marriage and that kind of traditionalist kind of thing. I think it's ruined so many people's lives, this kind of idea that you have to, get married and you have to, have 2.5 kids and just all the shit that I hate about, American culture.
Yeah.
That's what I hated about the movie. I felt so bad for Lorna.
You know what's funny though? Like this is probably the best banner ad for like don't do that. all wrapped in like this American dream, like red, white, and blue thing going on.
Yeah, totally, man.
So yeah, it's really interesting, man.
What about you?
Yeah, so for me, I like, the more we talk about this film, the more interesting it seems to me. In terms of like pure enjoyment factor, it felt like it was longer than it should have been. And it was a bit of a slog to get to the interesting parts of the film. But the more and more we discuss it, the more I find that the themes and like the questions it raises are interesting ones. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I think it's a result of the film having like costs and consequences. But yeah, it causes you to kind of question some of these like societal things that we are exposed to every day. And
bad ideas.
Yeah, and it really causes you to like question like what's important and like where can bad decisions lead. And I don't know, I just love how there's no good and no bad in this movie. It's just all like,
it's all gray area, right?
Yeah, total gray area film. And to me that's kind of refreshing. It sparks discussion. And I think more films like this, I take this as like a smart film. Like the writing is really well done. Whoever hammered out the main story did a really good job of like bringing in real world problems and asking interesting questions. And that's what I love the most about this movie. And I guess
it looks like it's based off a novel.
Oh, okay. I believe that.
By Larry Watson.
Okay. Yeah, this kind of material seems like it's totally in that kind of novelization sort of territory.
Think Larry had an overbearing mother?
Yeah, he probably had some massive family issues. Or he was a wee boy.
Ah, yeah, right. Maybe he was a wee boy, yeah.
He was the wee boy that left and went to college. It's like my crazy fucking family in North Dakota. This is a story about them. But yeah, in terms of hates, like I said, it's not really a hate, but it's, I mean, I wish I could have, I just didn't identify with this story as much as maybe someone else might have. I didn't get as much out of it as maybe someone else might have. And that's not so much.
I bet the boomers loved it, man.
Oh, dude. Like, and that's the thing, though. I don't think it's a movie meant for boomers, because I think it asks really interesting questions with regard to that generation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like it's pointing out some of the shitty things about the way things were for that generation. For someone younger, I don't think this is a film I'd be, like, telling our friends to go out and, like, oh, you got to see this in the theater. It's amazing. Yeah, I think you'd really have a good time with it.
Yeah, I don't think this movie would be better or worse in a theater. I think, on streaming it was fine. Definitely watch the movie in a dark setting, though.
Yeah.
Because as the movie gets darker, I watched it at night, so I could see watching it in the daytime, you couldn't even see half the shit that's going on in the second half of the movie.
I watched it during the day with my window open. And as the scenes started going, I had to completely shut the louvers because I couldn't see a damn thing. Yeah. So it's color and shadow definitely play a role in this movie. But yeah, so let's slap a score on this baby. What do you got?
I'm gonna give it 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 4, solid 4.
Yeah.
4 bong loads. It checks all the boxes from the technical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Casting, acting was great. I believed everybody. It was beautiful to look at. And I think I'm, just not going to give it a star for that, like, umami thing like we were talking about earlier. I didn't connect with it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bit slow.
Yeah.
But overall, very, very well-made movie.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you?
I'm giving it the same score. I'm going to give it 4 buckets of popcorn for the same reasons, too. It's, in terms of, like, quality. And the other thing I'll have to say, too, is when I saw Paramount flash on the screen, I was like, holy shit, the studios are still around? Because it's like, man, I can't remember the last time we reviewed a studio film. Yeah, I don't even remember the last one we did. But
was
I'm trying to look here.
Well, Wonder Woman, obviously.
I mean, anything recent. Yeah, man. There's
Greyhound. That was quite a while ago, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but it was kind of cool seeing something from the big studio. But yeah, it's well made. You could tell that there's quality up and down with the directing and the writing and the way it looks. The cast in this film is fantastic, and you got Kevin Costner and Diane Lane heading it. But yeah, like you, there's something I disconnected with in terms of really being 100% invested in the story. And I feel like you still could have come out with the same weight and consequence of the film by cutting it down like 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Other than that, I mean, it's so solid. So yeah, 4, but a solid 4, like with all the major boxes.
Yeah, and if you do connect with it, it'll probably rank higher for you.
Yeah. Like, I could see a lot of people really liking this movie.
Would you recommend it?
For sure, I'd recommend it.
At the price?
Oh, what did we pay for it? What did you pay for it? Do you remember?
$20 to rent. It didn't even have the option to buy on Vudu.
I'd say that if you're a fan of Kevin Costner and or Diane Lane, and you watch a lot of their movies, sure, you could give this a watch for $20. But I'd say anyone else, I would just wait till it starts to stream for free on one of the platforms or something.
Yeah, because it won't be long.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you are paying a premium for the Paramount streaming price, but
those assholes.
It's a well-made film. But yeah, I definitely recommend it in general. Maybe not so much buy it, but at some point it's worth a watch, I think.
Do you think the budget was really big on this?
No.
Yeah, I don't think
but
so.
But I think it served the film in the right way, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I think sometimes these films with these massive budgets can totally just crank out these stinkers. Like, you just look
it's like we gotta use the money.
Dude, you just look at like 90% of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Or like the entire Transformers franchise minus the first film. Like,
I was gonna say, don't you be talking shit about Megan Fox now.
No. I'm talking about every
car
other
hood
film.
Scene, man. That's iconic.
Yeah, it is. That's Americana right there.
What happened to her, man? Where the hell is she at?
Hey, she's in a movie that just came out. Maybe it might be something worth watching. The next Woman Kicking Ass film.
Me and her share a genetic recessive trait on our thumbs.
Really? She has that?
Yeah, she's got fat thumbs too, man.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, you got to get her somewhere because she's just perfect everywhere else. I don't even remember what I was saying. But anyways.
Yeah, you start thinking about Megan Fox and that's all you got in your head.
Yeah. So, So I think if anything, a smaller budget for a movie like this helps it. You don't need, millions and millions of dollars to like. Probably the most expensive shot in this whole film is at the end.
Yeah.
But everything else is just shot on location with people in front of a camera.
You think that cabin was a historic landmark and they got in trouble?
Well,
probably not.
Probably not. But if it was, they're screwed.
They probably built it for the movie.
There's lots of evidence out there. But yeah, I'm sure they built it for the film. That was probably the most expensive thing, building it and then destroying it.
Yeah.
And then that and Kevin Costner, Diane Lane's paycheck.
Yeah. Costner's got to have a pretty high price tag at this point.
Yeah, he might have gotten a percentage out of this movie.
Well, that's why it's $20.
Yeah. So we can help Kevin Costner put grocery stores on his dinner table. So yeah, that's all I got, man. You got any other last thoughts?
No, man. I think like you said earlier, talking about it made me appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But overall, really good movie. Solid.
For sure. Well, that's been episode 50 of The Buff and the Blazer. We'll be back at it next week with another episode for you guys, and hope you have a good week.
Peace.